Hello and welcome to The Cutting Room, 1.21 gigawatts of movie analysis, trivia and laughs from all the right movies. I'm John and the two slackers with me are Matt.
Hello.
You're a slacker.
And Luke.
Hello.
You're a slacker.
This is the third and concluding part of our Back to the Future episode. You should definitely check out the first two parts if you've not yet. If you have though, let's get into it. We're talking about our highlights. There's a lot of iconic moments in Back to the Future, and now we're going to talk about our highlights from the film. So, Luke, what's your highlight from Back to the Future?
Oh, so many. But I'm going to start us off with the I'm Your Density scene in the diner that's followed by the skateboard chase. Just
lovely.
Wonderful. Wonderful stuff. This is an extension of what I was talking about before with George. He's hilarious when he walks into that diner. And that guy has never been cooler. Luke, give me a milk. Chocolate. Bang. Who doesn't want to pull that move off? So he goes from like the coolest man in the world, but then it all falls apart when he speaks to Lorraine. Even though he's got handwritten notes, which he's trying not to hide, he's got them right in front of her face.
Yeah.
He completely messes it up with the I'm Your Density bit. Just so funny.
Yeah.
And there's this, it's incredible, just so many little details afterwards. Biff comes in. And he walks past this poor, unassuming guy at the counter and just pushes him out of the way. Just, you're in my face, get out.
He's not even in the way, though. He's just like sort of standing at the side. Just walk past
Such a funny detail. But
Yeah.
Marty in the skateboard chase, amazing stuff. Talk about setup and payoff. Waving at people in the diner as he flies past the back of the car.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And as does that final moment where Marty hops onto the hood of the car, traverses Biff's goons, and then lands on the board at the back while they slam into the manure truck. That is just what a set piece that is. And then coming full circle, Lorraine looking on like a lovesick puppy, and George skulking off in the background, still with his notebook in his hand. That's screwed that in, hasn't it? Amazing.
Yeah, you mentioned the chocolate milkshake there, and there's a behind-the-scenes blooper where Lou throws the milk to George and he completely misses it and it just falls on the floor, which is what would probably happen in real life.
Yeah.
For my highlight, I'm going for one of the biggest plot points in the film, the moment that George decks Biff. What a punch.
Yeah.
One of the best.
What a moment.
So satisfying.
I mean, there's literal lightning not long after this, but this is like a narrative lightning bolt.
Lovely.
The cuts between a helpless Lorraine, humiliated George, and laughing Biff, and then the close-up on George's fist as it clenches, the way Biff spins around and slides down the car, then the way Lorraine looks at George afterwards. All brilliant. But my favourite thing is probably the build-up to it, where George strides up to the car, bald as brass, because he's expecting to see Marty in there, but it's Biff, his worst nightmare. And Biff says, turn around and walk away. And George is terrified. He's desperate to leave. But for the first time ever, he stands up to Biff and says,
No, Biff. You leave her alone.
he's brave as a lion. I often well up when he does that.
No, Biff. You leave her alone.
And I think one of the reasons it feels so powerful is because basically every plot thread in the film rests on that moment. If George doesn't deck Biff, he doesn't complete his arc. Lorraine becomes an alcoholic. Marty will cease to exist. Doc will die. So basically, the entire narrative all comes together in that one punch. Just what great writing that is.
I agree.
And I mean, what a punch!
It's probably the most satisfying punch in movie history. It's beautiful because, like you
Yeah,
said,
it probably
there's
is.
so much riding on it for everyone.
Yeah.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Matt, what's your highlight from the film?
I'm going to go for the end when Marty finally makes it back. There's some lovely foreshadowing to this, isn't it? Because in that opening scene of Doc's, one of the clocks has a little figure of Howard Lloyd hanging off it, which is from Safety Glass, one of his most famous films. Even if you haven't seen it, you will know the image of Howard Lloyd just dangling off that clock face. And what I really like, it's that Doc gets this moment to himself, which is really tense. And it's the editing as well, because fundamentally it's only small little things that are going on here. You know, the lead is just snagged under the tree, but it feels so dramatic. And then when he gets it free, he's disconnected it further down the line. So he has to sort it out at the base level. And while he's doing that, the DeLorean chooses this moment not to start. And it's what this film does so well, which is just piling up levels of jeopardy after jeopardy. Like, oh God, now this has gone wrong and they've got to deal with it. It's a proper nail-biting scene, because even if Marty's approaching that line, he doesn't know if Doc is going to fix it in time. It's just edge of your seat stuff, because they've got this one shot at getting it right. And when he hits that line and he gets sent back, I love how it just ends on a bit of silence. And it's like, it's your cue to relax now, because I just feel the last few minutes I haven't taken a breath. It's such great edge of your seat stuff.
Also, we talked earlier about some changes to the original script, and one of the biggest changes was that at first, this whole clock tower sequence wasn't the climax of the film.
All right.
So instead, there was going to be a nuclear test site in Nevada. Marty and Doc would have to sneak into this site, and the nuclear explosion would send the DeLorean and Marty back to the future.
Right.
They changed it because it would be too expensive to do. But I mean, I'm glad it was too expensive, because the ending we get is just perfect. It has to end in Hill Valley.
totally,
Surely.
yeah.
It has to end in Hill Valley.
Of course it does.
That's it then. We're approaching the end. Time for one more thing, though, and that's to give our scores for Back to the Future.
Let's do it.
Matt, you first then, please. Your summary and score for Back to the Future.
Yeah. You'd have to be hard-pushed, I think, to find anyone who doesn't enjoy the hell out of this film. I think it's impossible not to, surely, because it delivers so many different aspects and it just pitches them all perfectly. It's like the greatest buffet you could ever go to, because if you want comedy, you've got comedy. If you want romance, you've got romance. If you want action, you've got action. If you want emotion, you've got emotion. And it's all tied together with some brilliant music choices, wonderful performances from everyone, and a plot that is just so well crafted and thought through. It should be taught at film school. Day one of film school, how do you write a plot? Just watch Back to the Future. That tells you how you write a plot. And it's just incredibly well-paced, so enjoyable. It is just a tiny few little flaws in there for me, just with the character writing, with Lorraine in particular.
You're beginning to sound just like my mother.
I do think some of the 80s attitudes towards commercialism haven't aged particularly well. And it is a film where, if I'm honest, I watched it loads when I was younger. It's just one I don't tend to revisit that much these days.
What?
I'm not sure why, to be honest. There's nothing in particular that puts me off watching it. I don't know if maybe I just don't get into the whole 80s nostalgia thing as much as some other people. But yeah, it's one I don't go back to all that often. So only little flaws, but because of those, it just misses out on being in my top tier of films. So it ends up with a 9.5.
Oh,
Slammed.
Controversial.
Absolute slamming.
wow. Well, for me, I mean, what can you say? It's a great film, a truly great film in my eyes. The cast are fantastic at worst, iconic at best. The visual work from the likes of Dean Cundy as DP and ILM as a visual effects house is stunning. Zemeckis' direction is Spielberg level. The screenplay is one of the best to come out of Hollywood. Basically, this is a film where just about everybody coming to it brought pretty much their best ever work. Lightning in a bottle, like I said earlier. It's quite the coincidence that arguably Hollywood's most famous time travel film is also one of Hollywood's most timeless movies. It just hasn't aged, I don't think. And in some alternate timeline somewhere, there's a film called Spaceman from Pluto starring Eric Stoltz, and it's a 6 out of 10. But in this timeline, Back to the Future starring Michael J. Fox, that's an easy 10 out of 10 for me.
Yes, yeah. More honest. Lovely. Very nice.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's more like it. Think on your sins, Matt.
And Luke, your final summary and score for BTTF, please.
Yeah, it's not going to be a surprise. It's got everything that you want from a blockbuster film. This just the spectacle alone, it's incredible. But then there are these additional layers like the memorable performances, at least half a dozen real standouts. Then great special effects, Zemeckis at his peak from a directing point of view, and also the writing. I mean, just some of the best. We mentioned it. Get only one of those elements right, and you're under a winner with a blockbuster film. But all of them combined is the reason why I believe it's endured so strongly for me and most audiences. It's a 10 all day long.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So, well, overall, that leaves Back to the Future with, I'd already written 30 out of 30
Sorry.
in my script here. I was, I thought that was nailed on.
Yeah. Like with a little curveball in there every now and then.
Oh,
We're done.
yeah. This is heavy. So, 29.5 out of 30 is the final score.
Yeah.
And that's all we have on this episode of The Cutting Room. To support us in what we do and to gain access to extra bonus videos, please support us on Patreon. Your help and support is massively appreciated. And the more support we get, the more videos we can and will make.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
We're going to make like a tree and get the hell out of here now. So we'll see you so long for now. And thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.
What?